Hey guys, it's Jackson from zcode.com. Without further ado, today we are going to dive into Java programming language, and specifically we are going to look at constructors, testers, and modifiers. So to begin with, I'll be reading out and giving a general explanation so that at least it's clear to everyone. So a constructor is a special method that is called or executed when an object is created. So what does this mean? This means that a constructor is a method that is called or executed when an object is created. This means you have an instance class somewhere which we'll look into. Actually, we looked at it in our previous tutorial. So you have your instance class. Then when you create an object of the class in your driver class, automatically you do that. A constructor will be called upon or executed simultaneously once you do that. That's what this statement means. So it's a special method. Every time you create an object for a specific class, an instance class, this constructor is automatically called as well. I hope we are clear, guys. Then constructors initialize instance variables. What does this mean? If you remember correctly, in our previous tutorial we talked about instance variables. We said instance variables are simply attributes of the specific object that we define, together with modifiers. So what the constructor will do basically is that it will initialize the instance variables. So let's say we initialize an instance variable name, for instance. So once a constructor is called upon, it initializes the instance variable. What this means is that depending on the data type that the instance variable has or carries, that will be the initialized value. So for instance, if in our case we are using the example of a name, if we have a name, automatically the instance variable's value will be an empty string, because we know that a name is a string. By now we've learned all the basics of Java. We know that indeed a name is a string. Hope that was clear. The second thing is that constructors have the same name as the class name. So what you notice is that when you're creating your instance classes, you have a name. Let's say, for instance, you are creating a bank account class. When you create your constructor, it will bear the same exact name. But one special thing about constructors is basically they do not have a return type. There's no need for them to have a return type because, as we indicated earlier, they initialize instance variables. So there's no need for them to return anything because their purpose basically is to initialize the instance variables that we've declared. Yes. So in our case here we have this public class, class name. Like this is the name. The name, as you can see here where the cursor is, that's the class name. And this one had parameters to indicate there were certain parameters or arguments that this constructor had. So for instance, like I said earlier on, we have the bank account. This is a constructor because it's found inside the bank account class. So once we call it, as you can see again here, we have a 50.0, a double figure that was being initialized into the variable balance, which is our instance variable in this case, which again proves our point earlier on to say constructors are used to initialize instance variables. Okay, so again, we had a point where we said automatically when we create an object for a specific class, the constructor is automatically called, or it initializes values into our instance variables. So let's look at this example. As you can see here, we have our tester class for the same bank account instance class. So let's dive into it. Take a close look at this first line here. So we created an object for our bank account class, which is AC1, as you can see here clearly. So what automatically, when this is done, when we just create this bank account AC1 is equal to new bank account with those parentheses and the closing semicolon there. Once this is done, automatically the compiler knows that it's time to initialize the instance variables with certain values that were declared under the instance class. Let me just repeat myself. The object, once it is created, the bank account object in this case, the moment we just call upon it, or the moment it is executed, the instance variables that we created in our instance class will be initialized with values. So if we didn't indicate under the constructor the values that we want to initialize in our instance variables, it will maintain the specific values that are default for each data type. In a case of a string, it will be an empty string. In a case of a double, it will be 0.0. In case of an integer, it will be 0. Yes, I hope we are clear up to there. Alright guys, that was a short tutorial. So, I'll give you time to go through this and understand the concepts. And the next time we meet, we'll look at overloading constructors. If you have time, you can look at it and ask questions the next time we meet. This was Jackson from zpod.com.